What's up? Yeah. Forever. Okay, let's try this again. Let me share my screen with all of you. Let's talk about... Actually, before I do that, I do this every time. Let's talk about the actions of the thumb. So it is very... Oh, now the computer thinks I'm talking to it. It is very the same as your fingers, but we don't think about it this way. So what am I doing with my fingers right now? That's correct, Ms. Carrillo. Miss Osuna, go. You said something. I felt. No. Sorry, Mr. Singletary. No.
Flexion.
Yeah. Flexion. Yeah. I'm closing that. This is a flexion. So when my thumb moves down, that is a flexion too. We don't think about it because we're used to this kind of wrapping kind of thing, but it's happening in front and it's a flexion, which means when it's moving back, that is an extension. Thank you, Ms. Dimitruk. Sorry, she mouthed it out really well. So what is this? Yeah, you can say it loud. Go ahead, Ms. Correa. Or, thank you, Ms. Rader. Sorry, I'm not used to having students in class. Abduction. And this is an adduction. Thank you. And what is this? Opposition. It's an opposition. And by the way, Mr. Craven, what is this?
Circumduction?
Yeah. So that's a lot of movements. Do you have a question, or are you just answering the last question?
I did. So I thought, maybe this is a bad time.
No, this is a good time.
I thought, abduction was like away from the midline of the body, and then adduction was adding it to the midline. So is it like the opposite kind of? Or is it like in relation to where your hand is?
It's in relationship to where your hand is. I've never clarified that before, and it's a really good question. So everybody, what he's saying, by the way, it would still work, because in anatomical position, I'm moving away from the midline of my body and moving away from the center of my hand. But you're absolutely right. Abduction is about moving away from the center of my body. So this is an abduction of my pinky. And this is me adding it back to the midline of my hand.
Miss Waite said that.
Oh, Miss Waite said that?
Yeah, it
Good.
was like the first couple of days we started. Miss Waite mentioned that.
100 days ago, Miss Waite said this, 100 class days ago. So anyway, Mr. Craven makes a really good point. So I am abducting basically all my fingers except my middle one here, number 3. And I'm adducting all of them. You pretend like this is the body when you do that. Same thing's true with your feet. So this was a perfect time to ask that, Mr. Craven. Thank you. Ms. Carrillo, yes, ma'am.
So it's just increasing the distance. It's more focused on these of increasing the distance away from each other, right?
Yeah, or the midline of your hand. Yeah. All right. So those are all the movements the thumb can do. So where would extensors of the thumb be located? Just where? Like on what part of your forearm, for example? Ms. DeBose.
Yeah, posterior side, right?
Yes, you're 100% right. The posterior side. Good job. And by the way, feel the back of your thumb. There's not really much meat there. There's meat between your thumb. I understand there's meat between digit 1 and 2. But the back of your thumb does not have meat there because both the extensors, your extensor pollicis longus and brevis, are found on the forearm. Whereas there's lots of meat on the pad of your thumb, there is no extensor on the back of your thumb. The extensors are both found in the forearm. I'm going to show you pictures in a second, but I love it if we can kind of figure this stuff out now because you'll remember that forever. So I have an extensor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis, both found on my posterior forearm. And I kind of remember that because there's not really any meat on the back of my thumb. There's meat between my thumb, but not on the back of it. So to extend it, I need stuff on my forearm to pull back. Yes. Now, where would abductors be found for my thumb? Anybody? Raise a hand. Abductors. AB. Yeah, Mr. Bose.
I'm just gonna guess. Is it on the posterior side too?
Well, you can get them on the posterior side and make it work. But we would say it's on the radial side, essentially, right? They're on the
Oh,
outside to pull outside. By the way, you're kind of right. We'll get there. But the point is they're going to be on the outside. So
Okay.
where would adductor pollicis be found to pull the thumb back in? Mr. Overman.
Would it be in the thenar eminence?
Yeah, well, actually, in this case, it's actually in the webbing right here.
In the webbing?
Yes.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing up a very important word that I haven't brought up yet. This thumb pad, our thumb pad, is called our thenar eminence. Thenar eminence. And it's actually made up of 3 thumb muscles that we'll get to in just a second. I have what's called a pinky pad too. You know how your pinky has some padding here too? That's called your hypothenar eminence, meaning under the thenar eminence. It's not exactly really under, but that's what they call it. So this, your thumb pad is your thenar eminence. This is your hypothenar eminence. Yes, Miss Carrillo.
Thenar is Greek for palm of the hand, and eminence meaning such as prominence, perturbance, high rank, reputation, special status, but in formal language it means a piece of rising ground.
Yes. So this is the rising ground of your hand. Thenar eminence. And this is the hypothenar eminence in your pinky. Right? So muscles found in front here, this is my anterior side, are going to pull my thumb in front, which is a flexion. So we know we're going to have a flexor pollicis in here, probably flexor pollicis brevis, and probably flexor pollicis longus on the anterior side here, right? We know on the outside here we'll have an abductor pollicis to help pull my thumb out. And I need something to pull my thumb over in opposition. What would we call a muscle that pulls my thumb over in opposition? Yeah, opponens pollicis. It's an opponator, opponens pollicis. And those 3 muscles actually make up my thumb pad. And then the adductor pollicis makes up the webbing between my first digit and my second digit. Yeah. We're also going to find, by the way, the pinky has very similar stuff when we get to it later tomorrow. The pinky has an opponator digiti minimi, and it has a flexor digiti minimi, and it's got an abductor digiti minimi. So, anyway, now let me share this slideshow now that we've kind of got this in our head a little bit. Yeah? What just happened to me? Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. I know it's very moving, Miss Dimitri, but don't cry. It's so good, though. Thumbs are really cool. All right. Here we go. Okay. So here is your beautiful hand. Hey, what's this band across here? What's that called? Mr. Jones. What's that, sir?
Flexor retinaculum?
Yeah, this is actually technically the extensor retinaculum because it's on the back side.
Yeah,
But-
because it's on the posterior.
Yeah, but it's retinaculum. Yeah, good job. Good job. Retinaculum is really just like smashed out tendon or ligament, right? It's just flattened fascia. Rapture wrist acts as a pulley here, all that stuff. Miss Clayton, yes ma'am.
It's just the same band, though. They just call it the extensor or the flexor based on the side of it, but it's the exact same band, correct?
Yes, it all connects, and you're right. It's basically the same band. Yeah. Yeah. You were 100% correct. Okay. So, I don't know if I should look at these together with you guys or separately. But I do want to point out, it was kind of like what I said. We were looking at the back of the arm, the posterior forearm, the posterior hand right now. That should be kind of obvious in this picture here. This is the back of the arm we're looking at. And on the back side, we've got an extensor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. And way over here on the back side to Miss DeBose's comment, but it comes out to the outside, is our abductor pollicis longus. It has to reach out to the outside to pull the thumb out. If we flip the thumb over, I thought we'd have one more before we flipped the thumb over, but maybe not. Hold on, everybody. No, all right, well, let's look at this anyway. If we flip the thumb over, you can actually see that we have the flexor pollicis brevis, the abductor pollicis brevis, and we should have the opponens pollicis in here, but I don't know if you can see it. Can we not see it? Oh, opponens pollicis up here too. All of these, by the way, do something really interesting. They do have origins on carpal bones, on your wrist bones, but they also have an origin in this white matter here. And what is this? Mr. Jones just said it.
The retinaculum.
Yeah, this is your flexor retinaculum. And we will also notice that this is a common place for the digiti minimi muscles to attach to. So, I'm not just showing you this because it's cute. What I'm about to tell you is extremely important. So, the muscles that make up my thenar eminence and the muscles that make up my hypothenar eminence have origins on both sides of the flexor retinaculum. And the flexor retinaculum forms the top of your carpal tunnel. And the carpal tunnel syndrome that everybody in this class has heard of, even if you didn't take this class, you've heard of carpal tunnel syndrome. Because somebody's had it, somebody's talked about it, is literally, quite literally, this space underneath here getting too tight and nerves and things like that getting pinched underneath the carpal tunnel. And the top of the tunnel, the bridge going over, is the flexor retinaculum. And what they do now for carpal tunnel, if it really is carpal tunnel, by the way, because it could be misdiagnosed, it could be thoracic outlet syndrome. But if it really is carpal tunnel and this pinching is occurring under here, sometimes what they will do is sometimes they'll just clean out this area. Sometimes they will actually cut through the flexor retinaculum to make space in here. Now, the problem with this is, and I'm not 100% against surgery, I'm just 100% against surgery as your first choice. I think it should be your third choice, or 13th choice. But sometimes it works miracles. The problem is when you cut into this, quite often scar tissue forms, and then that makes the carpal tunnel small too, right? And you can attempt to stretch this flexor retinaculum out without surgery, which is what the surgery is doing. And by the way, all we need is a millimeter in here. A millimeter is a big deal in the wrist. So the carpal bones are on the back side of here, making the back side of the carpal tunnel, and the flexor retinaculum is on the front, and the flexor retinaculum goes to the hypothenar eminence here and the thenar eminence. So if you massage the hand properly, you can actually stretch it out. And I'm going to have somebody look. Can I borrow your hand?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. So guys, I want to show you something. When I take a hand, we're going to do this a couple different ways so you can see. But this, thank you so much.
No problem.
This is a beautiful hand, by the way. I know we're all jealous. Okay. Anyway, this is her thenar eminence. And I'm going to grab it like that. This is her hyperthenar eminence. And they attach to her flexor retinaculum here. And I want to pull them out forcefully and hold. So I grab onto these, like hook onto them. And I'm pushing her hand forward and I'm pulling out here. It doesn't hurt. No, she doesn't hurt at all. But I'm doing it like that to stretch this area out. Boom. I would, of course, by the way, loosen up the forearms front and back. I'd also work I'd also work thoracic outlet syndrome because I don't know what it really is, and I want to work all that. And by the way, it might be a little bit of each of those. Don't forget this. Don't forget, a pinched nerve could have double crush or triple crush syndrome. In fact, usually they do. It's very unlikely that our poor client here who has carpal tunnel really has just a pinching here. She very likely has tension up in her shoulder, boom, which we can't see right now, but it's there. We know she has a shoulder. And she probably has thoracic outlet syndrome too. And we're just going to rub them all because it's safe. And we're going to do her forearm like you can't believe, and even her elbow because the nerves can get pinched in there. And then we are going to take her hand and open it out like that. I actually do it like this. I actually have the client like this. I pull out like that. It's very easy to do. And I'm usually in this position, like this. And I push down on the top of her hand. I push down on the top of her hand, and I'm pulling out from underneath. So I want to roll that stuff out. I work everybody's hand this way, but I will actually grab that. Sometimes you use a towel to get a better grip, and I'm trying to pull her thenar eminences apart. It does not hurt at all, no. It feels good. And then you can kind of roll around in there. Very powerful, because I'm using all 4 of my fingers on both sides. Yeah? So, thank you. And be thinking about this, though, that you can really kind of get in here and start to open up this area. Now, I'm not rubbing in her wrist pit, right? Because this area is actually quite sensitive. I'm not pushing on it hard enough to matter. But I'm trying to pull this flexor retinaculum apart. Thank you. Miss Clayton, yes, ma'am.
So I get that part. So at the base of the femur, where the bones are, you don't do any kind of manipulation there to kind of like separate the carpals or anything?
Well, I mean, in doing what I just did, you do start to separate the carpals automatically.
Okay.
And I will, you're right, be careful everybody, but I will kind of flex and extend the wrist while I'm doing this to kind of open up the carpals, and you'll feel them pop a little bit and things like that. But I'm not trying to adjust the wrist. I'm really not. For one thing, I'm not qualified to do it, and it's against my license. But I am trying to pull out that whole area. You're absolutely right. And you can grab on to this a little bit lower on the sides and try to open up the carpals. Sure. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Okay.
I'm definitely trying to open up that whole area. There's no doubt about it. But when you push down on the top of the wrist and roll out like this, you kind of press down on the carpals and it kind of smears them out too. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So you will get clients that come to you with carpal tunnel. You will get clients that come to you with carpal tunnel. You will get clients that come to you with carpal tunnel. I said it 3 times because it will happen and it will be fairly common. It might happen once a month. So you want to have a game plan. And first when they come in, they say, I've got carpal tunnel. I think to myself, I don't know if that's true. I don't mean I think they're a liar. I meant they could have carpal tunnel. They could be misdiagnosed by their doctor, because nowadays carpal tunnel is so common. It's not that the doctor's bad, but you walk in there like, oh, I've got weakness in my wrist, a little bit of when the doctor's like, carpal tunnel, take some anti-inflammatories and come back in 3 months and we'll see. Right? So what I do when somebody comes in with carpal tunnel, which, by the way, did I mention that you're going to have clients with carpal tunnel? Okay. So what I do is I think carpal tunnel, I think thoracic outlet syndrome. So I get these muscles in the side of the neck. What are those muscles in the side of the neck called?
Scalenes?
Scalenes. Yes. Then I get the scalenes heavily. Okay, by the way, I do all head and neck. Anybody who's having hand problems, why would we work the whole neck? Yes, they're saying it behind me, which is good. Yes, Mr. Richards.
Because that's where the nerves and things go from the neck.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Anytime somebody has an arm problem, I rub neck. It may not be the neck, but clients are never like, gosh, I really don't enjoy your neck work. No, they love you. They love neck work. So do the neck anytime there's a hand or arm problem, just because we don't know. And that's the cool thing about massage is nothing's lost. They just have a great feeling neck at the end. So thank you, Mr. Richards. Yes, the nerves from the neck feed the arm. So we hit the whole neck, especially scalenes. Then the thoracic outlet, the brachial plexus nerve goes underneath my collarbone. So I would also work, there's a tiny muscle right underneath my collarbone. What's it called? What's it called? Tiny muscle. Miss Hendrickson.
Subclavian?
Yeah, subclavian or subclavius. Yeah, subclavius, and it's right underneath there. Then, and it can be holding down, by the way, it can be holding down your clavicle, which could cause problems. Then I care about something that can be holding down my whole shoulder girdle. What muscle would that be, somebody? Miss Clayton.
Pec minor.
Pec minor, and thank you for not saying pec major. Pec major moves my arm, pec minor pulls my shoulder girdle, so we hit the pec minor really heavily. Then, believe it or not, I would work the elbow quite a bit because these nerves go through the elbow. That's why you have a funny bone, right? So don't hit the funny bone, but work around this to make sure it's all loose. I would definitely do forearm extensors and flexors because they could just be adding tension to the problem, right? And we, as massage therapists, remove tension from the problem. Then I would get here and I would start to separate the thenar eminence and the hypothenar eminence, right? So that was a fancy way, basically, of saying I work the snot out of the side of their neck going down their arm to their hand and work the snot out of their arm. But that's a very good protocol for dealing with people with carpal tunnel. Now, do not promise people you can cure their carpal tunnel because you may not be able to. And we're not actually allowed legally to say that we actually cure things. Doctors cure, we actually don't have a license to cure. But we might be able to alleviate the symptoms, which is really the same thing. And when clients say, well, you know, I'm scheduled for surgery in 3 months, so like, I mean, why should I try this? Well, if it works, you can avoid surgery. And if it doesn't, you're out a couple $100. I always say a couple $100. I don't lie to them. I don't make it sound like it's going to be cheap because you probably have to have 3 sessions with me before we even know if it's helping. But I'm like, is it worth a couple $100 for you to find out if massage is a nice answer for your problem? And it may not be for them. That's fine. But it's a very realistic thing. And by the way, I've had people it work miracles with. I've had other people it did not. But I often gained those people too as clients because they're like, oh, I love massage though. I feel better, even though my carpal tunnel still giving me a problem. And I've had many clients who have gotten multiple carpal tunnel surgeries. First one works for about 6 months or a year. It comes back and they do a second one. And then I've had many clients where they do the second one, works for a while. It doesn't work after that and they say, forget it. Mr. Godot.
Hey, Mr. Dubscott. I can explain later, but I have a very serious situation going on. And
okay.
I need about 10, 15 minutes where I'll be present, but I'm not going to be able to respond.
Okay, go. Do it.
All right, thank you.
Very serious, sounds very serious. All right. So that's your carpal tunnel protocol. All right. Neck, collarbone, clavicle, pec minor, elbow, flexors and extensors. Shred those. Shred them. Got a rolling pin in the kitchen, right? Old baseball bat. Shred them. Get into the hand. You know how much pressure people's hands can take, by the way? Yeah. I feel like I'm pretty strong. I don't think I could squeeze your hand hard enough to hurt you. If I poke down the top, maybe I could. But you should be using your full strength when you're working on little sweet old ladies' hands that are 98 years old. Right? I'm exaggerating, but really, hands. Because think about what we do with our hands. So hard. Please, please. Especially if they've got carpal tunnel. All right. Moving right along. That, by the way, is the most important thing I could share in this entire lecture. The name of the thumb muscles are wonderful and how it works are wonderful. And there will be some questions on the test final that are about thumb muscles. But. What to do with carpal tunnel is much more important, right? Getting your clients relief is what's really important here. Okay. Moving right along. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Hey, this muscle here, the adductor pollicis that makes up the webbing in your hand, you guys notice something very interesting about it? I always thought of it as running between my thumb and my second metatarsal here, my pointy finger, right? But which metatarsal is this? Metatarsal number, thank you, Mr. Richards, it's metatarsal number 3, which means when I'm working the pad of somebody's thumb, I don't, the adductor muscle here, the webbing, I don't just take it to metatarsal number 2, I actually skip over it also and go to metatarsal number 3. Otherwise, I'm not really getting the origins of it. Yeah. Come here, Mr. Sharon. Just because I saw you rubbing your hand. So, which is good. So, like, so nice to have actual hands. So, yes, I would rub all this, right?
It's following you.
Oh, it's following me. Stop following me. Nope, it really likes me. Okay. So, let's do this. Yes, I would rub this. And yes, I would rub it to this finger here. This is me rubbing on the side of that finger, right in there. But I also would rub it here. Do you feel the connection there?
Oh, yeah.
It connects between the second and third metatarsal too, and she can feel it in there. And hers is tight.
Oh.
Who's your favorite teacher?
Ms. Rader.
Yeah. So don't forget to get it between the second and third, not just the first and second. Yeah? It's a big difference. Thank you.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you.
That's nice here. So then we'll take it up here. I'll also come up from the bottom. Get it. Get up in there.
I love that. Oh, I don't love that so much.
She loves it.
Ah, God.
Yeah.
Ah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So, again, why do we learn anatomy? We learn anatomy to solve problems, and we learn anatomy to be better rubbers. And when you understand where the muscles really go, you hit spots that other therapists don't get. Other therapists come in here and go, squish, squish, squish. Isn't that better? And people are like, yeah, it feels kind of nice. And you come in there and you etch it out against the second metatarsal, and then second metacarpal. Sorry, it's not in your foot. Metacarpal. And the third metacarpal, and they're like, wow, that's so amazing. It's a much more thorough job, right? When somebody cleans your house, if the kitchen sink is spotless, but there's dust in the corners of the room, they did an okay job. Yes, the kitchen sink was the most important thing, and the dust in the corner of the room is not that big a deal, but you're still going to hire the housekeeper that also cleans the corner of the room, right? Detail is important. Detail is extremely important in massage. All right. Okay. So, abductor pollicis, as Ms. DeBose actually correctly identified, is actually found on the back of on the posterior forearm, and it actually is attached to the radius and the ulna and the membrane between the bone. What do we call membranes between bones? Miss Rader, please. Interosseous membrane, the membrane between the bones. Don't forget that you have a membrane between, and by membrane makes it sound all wimpy. No, you've got like a canvas sail there between your radius and your ulna that all sorts of muscles stick to. So when I work on somebody, I often put my fingers between their radius and ulna and wiggle them back and forth like this. Feels amazing. So when you've got somebody, yes, exactly. I'll take my thumb, put them in there, and get into that stuff. So you can really, really get into the interosseous membrane because that poor sucker is tired because there's all these muscles pulling on it. So we've got the abductor pollicis longus. It inserts in the thumb. How do I know it inserts in the thumb? Because it has the word pollicis in it. Please. There are 8 thumb muscles. They all have the word pollicis in it. Nothing else in your body has the word pollicis in it that's a muscle. Pollicis, 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 thumb, thumb, thumb. Cool? All right. So, by the way, the reason I'm telling you all this too is 20 years from now when you're still massage therapists, right, and you're earning like a 6-figure salary, I want you to remember when somebody comes in and says, blah, 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 pollicis, and you will get these clients. And by the way, there's so much information on the internet that they won't have even gone to massage school. They won't even be physical therapists. They won't necessarily be doctors, but they will throw out some muscle terms to you, and they're testing you. And they'll walk in the room and say, blah, 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 pollicis. And you'll go, oh, and you'll grab them. It doesn't have to be exactly right, but we know all the thumb muscles live somewhere from here down to my thumb. That pollicis tells me everything. It tells me it's either got to be one of the 4 thumb muscles found in your hand. There's 3 here in the thumb pad, the thenar eminence, and there's 1 between here, the adductor pollicis. That's 4, and there's 4 up my arm, and they're all right in here. So if you walked in the room and said extensor pollicis brevis, I wouldn't instantly, even as a massage teacher, be like, oh, back of the forearm right here. It would take me a second, but I'd be like, pollicis thumb. Right away I grab you and go, oh, so we got some thumb problems? Instantly this client's like, oh, this person knows what they're doing. And that's very important. You do not want to start off the relationship with them being like, this guy doesn't know his anatomy. So, pollicis, 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 there's your abductor pollicis longus. If there's an abductor pollicis longus, we know there's a brevis. And then you have an extensor pollicis longus and brevis also in the back of the arm. All kind of found in this area here, right? And the extensor pollicis longus goes more to the ulna, and the brevis goes more to the radius, and they both go to the interosseous membrane. But you're just going to rub this whole area right around here, right? By the way, if you want to feel and find the exact pollicis you're looking for, which rarely you need to do, wiggle the thumb. If I grab the forearm and I wiggle the thumb, I will feel your thumb muscles move. The client just thinks I'm pinning and stretching, which I am, and it really is helpful to them, but I'm also trying to find muscles because I didn't remember their exact origin insertion. 20 years from now, you're not going to remember the extensor pollicis longus is on the ulna and the extensor pollicis brevis is on the radius. If you think about it for a while, you will, because you'll be like, well, brevis, the radius is closer, so it probably attaches to there, and longus, the ulna is further away from the thumb, so it probably attaches there, but it won't instantly come to you. And this just helps you find stuff. I'm often wiggling people's bodies to find muscles. Remember, they move around. It's really hard to find stuff. So wiggle the bones that the muscle is attached to, and you can find the muscle. That's how I started pinning and stretching before they even taught pinning and stretching. I found it by accident because I was trying to find muscles. And I'm like, well, I know it attaches to this. And I wiggle it, and I'd be like, oh my God, you can feel it. And the client's like, that's amazing. You're putting movement into your massage. And I lie to them and be like, yes, it's amazing. I did that on purpose. But I was looking for stuff. Okay, so really on the back of your forearm, you've got this extensor pollicis brevis and longus, and you've got this abductor pollicis longus. And those are 3 of the 4 forearm thumb muscles. You've also got, that's the same ones. There we go. You've also got in front, on the radius, and the interosseous membrane, again, you've got the flexor pollicis longus. If you ever had to guess, by the way, longuses are up the forearm. That doesn't work with both the extensors, but it works most of the time. Longuses tend to be up the forearm and the leg, right? And brevises tend to be in the foot and hand. When we're talking about feet and hand muscles, yeah? So you got a flexor pollicis longus here in front to help pull my thumb down, yeah? And that is your 4 forearm thumb muscles. So you got 8 thumb muscles, 4 and 4. 3 make up the pad of my thumb. 1 connects my thumb over to my 2nd and 3rd metacarpals. But there's 4 in the hand, 4 down here. Okay? So let's look at the thumb itself. Such a beautiful little thing. Okay. Then you've got the abductor pollicis brevis. This makes up your thenar eminence. You've got 3 muscles that make up your thumb pad, your thenar eminence. And the only thing I care that you know is that the origin of this guy is the flexor retinaculum. Yes, it grabs onto some carpals that are right by there, but it's the flexor retinaculum. What's the origin of this muscle? The flexor retinaculum. If you hit that, you're going to hit those carpals without even realizing it. And by pulling that, you pull those carpals without realizing it, which spreads the carpals. It's so convenient. So God gave you a handle to stretch the flexor retinaculum. Roll it out and stretch it. Then we've got the flexor pollicis brevis. It too has an origin on the flexor retinaculum. And it too makes up your thenar eminence. And then we've got the opponens pollicis, which helps you to opinate. It helps to roll your thumb over. It actually literally does that. It doesn't just pull it over. It actually kind of rolls your thumb over. If you think about it, you are seeing the palm side of my thumb here. When I opinate, you're seeing the dorsal side of my thumb. So when I opinate, my thumb actually rolls over a little bit, kind of like your radius does. And so this guy grabs on the outside and rolls your thumb over. But it too has an origin of the flexor retinaculum. So, the opponens pollicis, there is no longer longus or brevis because there's only one. The adductor pollicis brevis and the flexor pollicis brevis make up my thumb pad. Then we just need one more for a fourth thumb muscle, and that is the adductor pollicis. There is no longus or brevis because there's only one of these two. It has an origin, don't worry about the capitate, it has an origin on the second and third metacarpals. So it looks, when we look at our hands, it looks like it just goes to this edge here. But it actually goes to this edge too. And I know from now on when you massage hands, you're going to remember that. And you're actually going to try to dig between the second and third metacarpal as well as this easy to hit target right here. Because you want to have hundreds of things in your massage that other therapists just don't do. Right? And this is one of those small little things where clients are like, I don't know, you just seem better. I don't know why. Your attention to detail. Yeah. Okay. You can see the actual attachment points here for the adductor pollicis right here. Cool, cool, cool. Fun stuff. Okay. Let's stop sharing that. So, we'll get ready to release homework here and things like that soon. But I want to ask Mr. Ma. Mr. Ma, sir, if a muscle, you're so nice. If a muscle is going to my thumb, any one of the 8 muscles going to my thumb has what word in its name?
Pollicis.
Thank you, Mr. Ma. Honestly, besides the carpal tunnel rant I went on, probably the most important thing to remember from today, right? Right? And we've mentioned it 100 times. Probably going to come up in a test. Pollicis tells you it's a thumb muscle. Yeah. Who can tell me how many thumb muscles in total you have? Miss Osuna.
We have 8, 4 long, 4 short.
Yes, 8, 4 long, 4 short, essentially. So, and we have how many in the forearm? Mr. Ma?
4.
Yes. And how many in the hand, Mr. Ma?
4.
Yes. 4, 4. 4, 4. Up in the hand, it's 3 in the pad, 1 in the webbing. But it's still 4. 4 right there. 4 right down around here. Yeah. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Abductors are essentially found on the outside. Adductors are essentially found on the inside. Flexors are still on the back. Sorry, flexors are still in the front. Extensors are still in the back. Just like your forearm muscles. Yeah? Very cool. And all these 8 muscles allow your thumb to flex, extend, abduct, adduct, opinate, and create a circumduction as well. And your thumb is able to do all that stuff because it's a very special joint called a saddle joint, by the way. Do you guys remember saddle joints? They only really exist in your thumb, I think. I can't think of another place. It literally looks like a saddle, like you'd ride in a saddle, with another saddle on top of it. And what that allows you to do is I can rock back and forth this way in this saddle, and this other saddle can go this way. And that's how my thumb is able to go this way and side to side. And you put all that together and you can circumduct and stuff. It's a saddle joint. It's very, very cool. Yeah? Questions, comments, thoughts, all that good stuff. Let's see. Mr. Richards, please talk to me.
But why don't they call it a ball and socket joint if it does all the planes, if it does all the action?
It's a great question, sir. A saddle joint acts like a ball and socket in the fact that it can do all the planes. So, because a ball and socket can do all the planes, does not mean that something that does all the planes is a ball and socket. So, a saddle, it's a saddle joint because it really is two bones that look like two saddles. Whereas a ball and socket really is a ball and a socket. Yeah. I don't know if that's the answer. But it's a great question. It is a clever way to do all that stuff without having an actual ball and socket. And it seems to work pretty well. Wow. All right. Any other questions? I'm releasing homework right now. I think you only have one piece of homework. Yeah, that's right. You do. You only have one piece of homework, which is a little test on the thumbs. So we're taking it kind of light coming back in here. So I'm going to mute myself, and I'll come back and check on you guys and do your homework, because you can easily finish this before lab today. And then you can come in and get hugs from your classmates and massages from your classmates and go home with no homework, which sounds like a good day to me.